Today we're going to talk around persistent pain in athletes. Can you just give us a bit of an update on like what you're doing at the moment work-wise and how you're sharing your time across, I know, multiple sort of places where you're working?
Yep, so I'm a little bit spread, but that's okay. I like the variety. So I'm working at the Australian Ballet and I'm working at the Victorian Institute of Sport. So I still love being a physio, so I split my time clinically, and I get asked to come and see different athletes at different sporting environments, particularly if they're a little bit tricky or they have persisting pain. And I'm still doing research out at Trobe University.
Beautiful. And I know when you say Ebonie Rio is going to do a talk, everyone would immediately think we're going to be talking tendons.
I'm going to sneak some tendon in today, don't worry.
Definitely, good. And that being a really strong area of your expertise where, you know, it's changed a lot of the pathway about how we're managing tendons, your work, and in conjunction with obviously Jill and the rest of the team. But an area that you have a really big interest in is pain, and not necessarily just pain in tendons. Where did that interest come from? And why is it an interest of yours?
So I was really lucky during my PhD. Professor Lorimer Mosley ended up as one of my supervisors because I started talking about pain to Jill and she was like, "Oh, I think we need to get someone in." And Lorimer is amazing and he's so inspirational, and I just started learning more and more and more. And then as part of their pain revolution, you know, I was involved and I ended up doing a graduate certificate in pain science through University of South Australia, and I was just intrigued by just the profound impact it can have clinically. You know, one of Loz's quotes is, "We are bioplastic, so every single cell in your body is capable of change till the day you die." And I say that to people all the time, and it's profound for people that have persisting pain. So I was just super inspired, and a lot of the clinical second opinions that I get asked for, often tendon is the way in. I've got this really tricky tendon, and then it's not a tendon. It's someone with a differential or persisting pain or combination, and it's just something that you've got to clinically reason through. So yeah, I've just ended up inheriting a bigger and bigger caseload in people with complex pain, but I love the puzzle of it. I love the challenge.
Beautiful. And I think when we talk about, I guess, persistent pain or where that, and you will talk to, I'm sure, but chronic pain and what have you, I think most of us would immediately think towards the person we might see in our clinic, older age group, potentially chronic low back pain and that sort of side of things. How prevalent and how important is the persistent pain and managing that in, I guess, younger athletes? Are we seeing it in younger athletes, and does it really have an impact if we're talking here your ballet dancers to professional football or soccer players?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we all see a lot more persisting pain than we think. We're often managing people, and we may not necessarily give it that term, but often our athletes and our dancers are not pain-free, and we're often pushing the limits of what they're capable of. And you know, you would know that you're often managing a number of chronic conditions within your caseload. And so it's interesting that we do have this perception of what a chronic pain patient looks like, but actually I would argue that there's probably a few people on all of our lists that would fit the definition of persisting pain, and pain doesn't discriminate. It's this incredible phenomenon, and it's a real health challenge for us, but yeah, it's very persistent.
Where do you think physio's role, or how do you see, I guess, physios to date in where we're at in our way of practicing, in our ability to both recognise persistent pain states, but also to maybe address that, and what role do we play in that?
I think we've got a huge role, and I think we have a real obligation to understand pain, but also not to be totally frightened where we've got this perception where, you know, if it's musculoskeletal or if it's nociceptive, you know, we've got this, and then as soon as it's chronic pain, we're out. Like, that's not our wheelhouse. I think we also shouldn't reserve education and empowering our patients for people that we diagnose as just having persisting pain. You know, the language we use around an ankle sprain can have a profound impact on, you know, someone's understanding of their condition. So, you know, the language we use around tendons are really important, and imaging and all of those things. So I think what I want to really get through today is, in terms of our clinical decision making, you know, recognise why someone isn't getting better, and is it something we've missed? Is it the biology? Have we actually miss key cues in what the athlete or the patient is telling us? Or is the biology a small part of their sort of pain pie now, and we need some of our other skills, and none of those skills are beyond the capability of physio as part of the team? You may not be the only person managing that person, but I think we also work well in a team, so I think we're really well placed.
Yeah, lovely. And I'm sure I'm getting to the end of, I guess, our questioning, and because I'm sure you'll cover most aspects of this sort of thing, but how important is, if we think persistent pain or chronic pain, it's like, oh, they've had pain for 4 months now, let's start treating the pain. How important is having that plan of approach to, I guess, educate around pain right from the get-go? Is that something that can be embedded within a rehabilitation from day dot, or is it something that's more just selective as you sort of see these signs come through in the athlete or person?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the first thing is to really understand what pain is. So pain is our brain making a decision that weighs up your amount of danger and your amount of safety. And if your brain decides that you need protecting, then pain is one of the potential outputs that you might have. And when you put it in that context, you can understand that a danger message, so nociception and information from the tissues, is incredibly powerful, but it's actually not the only part. And so we can have an incredible impact on all of the other contributors to that pain experience. And we can do that for someone with, a relatively straightforward musculoskeletal injury right through to the persisting pain. And time as a definition of chronicity is actually really flawed because, where does something like tendinopathy fit? It has all of the features of being, load related and nociceptive, but it's incredibly persisting and one of those conditions that we will manage people with. So what we need to do is not reserve our education for people that we just think it's, 3 to 4 months plus. We need to make sure that our messaging is really accurate and embraces pink flags, which is something I'm going to talk about in the masterclass, to really give people their best chance of, having low and stable pain and good function.
Excellent. And final one for me is, I guess, we're talking there around those pain states and we're thinking like this is a longer term tendon or groin or back issue. I'm sure we'll touch on, but those athletes that are really hypervigilant or hypersensitive maybe, whereby it's not like a true pain state, but there might be, they always feel their hamstring and they're always testing their hamstring and they might be still playing in full function, but they are just fully in tune with something that's so minute that's just out of the norm for them. How do we manage those sort of athletes, and maybe we touch on that around some tips and techniques to, I guess, best manage those sort of athletes?
So it's about knowing or making some shared decisions around what you're going to get your athlete to listen to and how often. So that would be the last person that I would suggest a pain diary, because you're going to get, 5:17, I used Colgate toothpaste and I felt my hamstring more. You're going to get a level of detail that's unhelpful. And it's also about bringing that person on board with what pain is, and that, if you think of the pain neurotag, so when a certain combination of neurons in your brain light up, that's your hamstring pain neurotag. And things other than loading your hamstring can actually fire that neurotag. And you can draw on a couple of examples to help people understand that, but you can also show them that they might be firing that neurotag several times a day, and neurons that fire together wire together, as David Butler and Lorimer would say. And so you're just strengthening that neurotag and actually encouraging the persistence and encouraging that sensitivity. So I think a healthy dose of pain physiology is actually really helpful in terms of your education, but also helping people, don't tell them to just ignore it, because they won't. Information from their body is a really important piece of their puzzle, and so you need to give them some parameters around how you might do that.